What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Nacho Wrestling, and welcome back to Versus, the series where I pit two wrestlers against each other and take a look at who the overall better wrestler is, in my opinion. In today's episode, we are taking a look at the founding fathers of D-Generation X and the two men that are now in charge of WWE main roster and NXT. That's right, it's the Heartbreak Kid Shawn Michaels versus the Game, the Cerebral Assassin, the King of Kings, terrorizing. You know him as Triple H, I know him as Paul Levesque. But before we get into the grading criteria and the meat and potatoes of the video, as always, be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date on all things Nacho Wrestling, and if this is your first time watching a Nacho Wrestling video, why don't you consider hitting that subscribe button and sharing this video with your friends. As always, there are 5 rounds to go over, and the 5 rounds are as follows: overall look and presentation, promo and talking ability, overall match quality, kayfabe, and overall legacy. The other thing to mention is that these rounds are based on my opinion, and if you disagree with them and disagree with the outcome of a round, sound off in the comments below and let me know why you disagree with me. With that out of the way, let's get on to round 1, overall look and presentation. So let's get the elephant out of the way. I genuinely am not a huge fan of Triple H's later gear in his career. I would go so far as to say that I kinda hate it. I think it's not good. I think the all black with the white accents and the leather vests and the motorcycle and the Terminator stuff and everything like that. Don't get me wrong, I understand that the Terminator thing was really only used once at WrestleMania 31, but all of it just screams desperate old man trying to be cool and hip and youthful, when that kind of stuff, that theme and everything like that, just doesn't really work. On the other hand, I think Triple H's older gear, the stuff from like the mid-2000s and even the Attitude Era stuff, worked really well because he threw in some color every now and again. There was a time he wore those purple pants, there was the time he had like light blue in his gear, or he would have red accents in his logo. And that's another thing to mention, is that Triple H's logo now just being like an iron cross is kind of weird. And I really appreciate the old Triple H logo where it was like the 3 H's kind of in the center enlarged on the iron cross. It just worked better. Now it's like generic skull with crown, and it's just, you know, it's not the best thing in the world. Like, there's other stuff that you could do to make yourself stand out, and obviously nowadays he doesn't really use a lot of logos because he wears suits, so he doesn't really need to have wrestling attire anymore. But like the latter half of his career, especially the older stuff like that he did with like Batista or anything like that, just really didn't sit well with me personally. It wouldn't be a look and presentation if I didn't talk about theme songs, and Triple H has some of the best theme song catalog in WWE. You have My Time, you have King of Kings, you have The Game, you have all of those, even Line in the Sand by Evolution. It really does help that he had a really good relationship with Motorhead frontman Lemmy, which I think he kind of didn't. I'm not 100% sure on that, you know, tell me if I'm wrong in the comments, but like, he seemed to be good friends with Motorhead, so much so that Motorhead eventually got into the WWE Hall of Fame, or Lemmy himself did, which is really cool. So yeah, Triple H has got great theme songs, they just don't usually get accompanied by great gear. Meanwhile, on the other side of the aisle, we have Shawn Michaels, who I think really ironed out his gear and look and presentation very early on in his career. Of course, there was the rocker era of Shawn Michaels, and even that was pretty solid. The gear matched with Marty Jannetty, the gear looked very 80s, late 90s, or early 90s. Kind of style, which, you know, works well for the era he was in. But once he went out on his own, the Heartbreak Kid logo, like with the cracked heart and everything, and just worked great. The theme song as well is iconic. It's one of the top 10, maybe even top 5 theme songs in all of professional wrestling. So much so that even the parody version that Kurt Angle does, Sexy Kurt, is also up there as one of the best theme songs in wrestling. And even Shawn Michaels' later stuff in his second run during like the mid 2000s and late 2010s was also really good. I personally always think of the gear he wore at WrestleMania 22 against John Cena as being like the end-all be-all best version and best look for Shawn Michaels, because it incorporated a little bit of the old stuff with like the Heartbreak Kid logos and the red and the white, but it was the sort of new style like baggier pants that he was wearing. It also does help that I had that figure growing up and I really loved that figure. I loved booking him in my Fig Federation hard. But I can't talk about overall presentation and gear for Shawn Michaels if I don't bring up the poopy doo-doo brown pants from Survivor Series 2002, the first Elimination Chamber, which, you know, the gear was unfinished and everything like that, so, you know, you can't really get mad at it. But even the color choice alone was just a bad idea, and I think it was this gear and the backlash on this gear that led him to switch to the baggy pants. I could totally be wrong on that, but I swear he switched to the baggy pants soon after this. In the end of this round, I'm gonna have to give it to HBK. His gear just always stood out a little more to me. It was a little more iconic, and especially during the 90s, like pre-Attitude Era, it was something that really helped him stand out among other guys who were maybe just wearing black trunks or black singlets and nothing super special. Round 1 result: HBK 1, Triple H 0. If I'm being honest, this round I am genuinely so unsure of, because on one hand, Triple H promos have become a meme of themselves. Everyone makes fun of his cadence. People have to always talk like this when they mimic a Triple H promo. It started with The Rock in the Attitude Era, and it just kind of stuck around as a joke and a landing point for people to make fun of Triple H. But that being said, his promos weren't terrible. They weren't perfect either, but when you look at guys like The Undertaker, or maybe even guys like Mankind, who, you know, Mick Foley definitely cut some good promos in his career, but his WWE stuff never really hit a home run like his ECW stuff did. He was definitely better than guys like that, but he just couldn't hang with guys like Stone Cold and The Rock. He's one of the most mid promos of the Attitude Era, if you ask me personally. But at the same time, HBK promos never really stood out to me either. I don't think I can name any specific promo from HBK that really like made me think that, wow, he's a solid promo. There was, of course, a few things he did, like during his Undertaker feud on WrestleMania 25 and WrestleMania 26, that were really solid. And then I always think of the time he had that promo with CM Punk during CM Punk's like new Nexus era, which was really good. But other than that, I can't really think of anything that like makes me think that HBK like is better than Triple H at the promo stuff. Sure, Triple H talks really slow and has like a 15-minute town hall here and there, but at least HBK like just, you know, shut up and wrestled. With all that being said, I'm going to give this round to Triple H. Neither one of these guys really were the best in the promo department. They weren't bad either, but when they were together, that's honestly when they worked best. All the DX stuff back in the day, and I'm not talking about like 2006 DX or even 2009 DX. I'm talking about OG, just the two of them in China, maybe even the two of them and Rick Rude. That was good stuff. Those were good promos. You know, do they age bad because of all the sexual innuendos and like degrading women things that they do? Obviously, for sure, 100%. Not denying that at all. But the State of the Union, where Shawn Michaels talks about how he was up all night, iconic, and both of them were involved in that. But that being said, I'm going to have to give the edge to Triple H here, because I grew up on Triple H coming out, doing these long-winded promos, and I just had to kind of deal with it. So it's what I remember, and honestly, it worked to get certain guys over, like Batista or Randy Orton, or later on, you know, John Cena, who really didn't need it at that point, but got it anyway from Triple H. So yeah, give me Triple H for this round. Round 2 result: HBK 1, Triple H 1. Time for the round that some may love and some may hate. It's the only round that I back up with genuine facts and statistics. Overall match quality. Of course, both these men are great wrestlers. They've had some great matches in their careers, and to preface, I use the default settings on Cage Match. I don't really go to look specifically at WWE wrestlers or AEW wrestlers or New Japan wrestlers or anything like that. Just the standard default list when you click on the wrestlers tab on Cage Match, which means that Shawn Michaels is sitting at the number 6 spot and Triple H is just peeking down below him at the number 12 spot. Let's start with Triple H, who boasts a pretty solid score of 8.46, which nothing to sneeze at, nothing terrible. It's pretty good, especially for a guy that had a lot of stinkers later on in his early, end of days career and everything like that. Like, I'm talking like the match with Sting, the slow 45-minute match with Batista at Mania, or oh god, this also has HBK involved in it, but him and HBK versus the Brothers of Destruction in Saudi, garbage. So his matches in the tail end of his career, not great, and you'd think that would really drag him down, but it's not terrible either. So 8.46 is nothing to sneeze at. However, HBK takes him to Gapplebee's with a score of 9.58. For all my math fans out there, that is over a 1 point difference, 1.12 to be exact, for anyone that's, really interested in the numbers. That gives this definitive win to HBK for round 3. I can't really, argue this at all. People voted for HBK more often than they voted for Triple H, but that means that the votes matter more for Triple H. So if the overall consensus is that he had a stinker few years here and there, who are we to judge? I mean, if you want to go out there and do it yourself, go on a Cage Match and rate shit. I don't care. Round 3 result: HBK 2, Triple H 1. Ah, yes, the round that takes a look at the totally legitimate and definitely not fabricated accomplishments of both men. Again, let's start with Triple H. The game has won just about everything there is to win in WWE, with the exception of the United States title, if I'm not mistaken, and of course the Money in the Bank. But everything else, he's had his hands on. Tag title, Intercontinental title, European title. What else has he had? Oh yeah, he's a 14-time world champion, just below John Cena and Ric Flair, and I believe tied with Randy Orton if I'm not mistaken. There's a reason that Triple H and that meme of him holding every single WWE championship is a thing, or was a thing, for a long time, especially during the Reign of Terror era of Triple H. On the other side of the aisle, you have HBK Shawn Michaels, who was also a European champion and Intercontinental champion at 2 different times. And just a little fun fact for you guys, when HBK was tired of having the European Championship, who did he drop it to, you may ask? None other than his good friend Triple H in a comedy segment on Raw during the holiday season. HBK is also the first ever person to go coast to coast in a Royal Rumble and win it from the number 1 spot, which obviously everyone knows that because during Royal Rumble season, it's always brought up, and that shot of his foot almost touching the floor is always shown, so that really doesn't need to be talked about. What should be talked about is that HBK is only a 4-time WWF/WWE champion, the 3 times being with the WWF title and the 1 time being with the big gold belt when he won it at the aforementioned Elimination Chamber match with the brown doo-doo pants. Now, I could and probably should totally give the win to Triple H here. I mean, after all, he's a 14-time world champion, he's won the Royal Rumble twice, and everything like that. But I'm not going to, because fuck you. I genuinely think HBK, in kayfabe, will go down as one of the more prolific wrestlers. And also, if we're being, 100% honest with each other here, a lot of Triple H's accomplishments feel like half-hearted handouts from his father-in-law. Round 4 result: HBK 3, Triple H 1. Well, here we are, round 5, which for the second time ever doesn't really matter because HBK has won. There's no way Triple H can come back, but we're gonna go over this anyway. And it's good that it's here last because I have something to say. Triple H has a solid wrestling legacy, one of the best if we're being honest. He is talked about as one of the more prolific wrestlers, and that may be because of all the pushing out of himself that he's done in the past few years, but we'll get to that here in a second. But he is really, if we're being honest, he's really good. Triple H as a wrestler was really good. Whether you were growing up during the Reign of Terror and were annoyed by him, or whether you were growing up with him sort of in this old man era, like, you know, I'm talking like WrestleMania like 25, I would say, and beyond. Like everything after WrestleMania 25 feels like old man Triple H to me. You know, just him trying to fit in and be cool. But Triple H's booking legacy, which does tie into his overall legacy, since they're both still involved in the business just as creative heads for NXT and WWE main roster, his booking legacy is taking a nosedive in the past year or so. I mean, yeah, I understand a lot of the booking decisions are done for optics and what's going to get the most clicks these days for WWE, which, whatever, you know, that's a whole separate thing to talk about at some point. But screwing over LA Knight and not putting the title on him while he's been red hot is just a dumb idea, among running the same angles over and over and over. Triple H has obviously lost a lot of support since first taking over for Vince back in late 2021, early 2022. Meanwhile, Shawn has a bit more of an overall complex history and legacy. During his first WWF run, he was of course touted as quite the asshole. Did not put a lot of guys over, did not like working a lot of people, and really only wanted to help get his friends like Triple H, like Kevin Nash, like Razor Ramon, and Six Pack or X Pack or 123 Kid, whatever you know him as. I know him as Sean Waltman. He didn't really fuck with anyone other than the Clique, and it was obvious. And that's okay. I mean, you got your friends, but you know, you kind of gotta, it's a business. You gotta put people over. I think HBK has had quite a bit of a turnaround compared to Triple H. If we were to compare the two, they're sort of on diametrically opposite scales. Triple H, loved at one point, touted as the savior of WWE, especially during the NXT days where he was in charge, now being looked at as one of the biggest war criminals, no pun intended at all, on WWE's recent booking malpractices. Which again leads me back to the whole thing about how, like, it's not really Triple H's fault. I feel like TKO is causing a lot of this as well. Sort of a two-pronged issue. But again, neither here nor there right now. Now it's HBK who's being touted as the savior, building up stars like Trick Williams, like Javon Evans, like Obafemi. All these guys were being built up by Shawn Michaels. Another thing that people really love Shawn Michaels for, especially today, is his love of women's wrestling. The amount of women that he has helped season and get ready for main roster in NXT is an extensive list. Kiana James, Tiffany Stratton, Roxanne Perez. I could continue to go on, but it's just so obvious that HBK takes a genuine liking to helping get these girls over. All of that aside, I truly do believe HBK will go down with a better overall legacy and history as a professional wrestler and as a booker, because like I said, he was once touted as a bit of an asshole, a bit of a fucking dickhead, but also at the same time, he's taken the right steps to fix that, to be a good person. He's buried the hatchet with Bret Hart, which it wasn't really him that had to bury the hatchet. I could sit here and tell you that Triple H is gonna have the better legacy, but the more Triple H puts everything out there about himself and how he is the preeminent face of WWE, and if you don't think that that is the case, I mean, why is there King of Kings version of 2K26? Why? Also, one last note before I end the video is that wrestling is supposed to be fun. Wrestling is supposed to be like something that you can laugh at and enjoy and everything like that. It's not supposed to be a slog. And I think a lot of people have a lot more fun talking about HBK than they do Triple H. Round 5 result, HBK 4, Triple H 1. Damn! HBK put belt to ass against Triple H. I genuinely don't even know for sure if I completely agree with that 5th round outcome, but sitting here and stewing on it a little more and obviously recording this outro, I kind of do have to agree with it. I personally think that HBK is one of the best, if not probably like the best guy from WWE that was only ever in WWE, which, you know, you could tell me if I'm wrong on that in the comments below. Speaking of which, Tell me what you think about the video down in the comments below. Tell me who you think is the better overall wrestler as well down in the comments below. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, hit the bell to stay up to date on all things Nacho Wrestling, and I will see you guys next time.